Okay, we'll call the meeting to order, and we will start with a roll call.
Andy Mary,
Here.
Jim Balzer,
Here.
Mike Boldick,
Here.
Noel Deep,
Here.
Jeannie Long,
Here.
Mary Neufeld,
Here.
Danny Pyatt,
Here.
JD Schrader.
Here. Okay, and we'll go on to the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
in public comment. There's nobody signed in. Okay. And we're going to go right on to the board interviews for the vacant position. And candidates, we would ask you to step across to the art room while we interview.
Did the other candidates already know that?
I think maybe the other candidates already know that.
Well, it seems like we're going to have a lot shorter than this appears.
And for the board in the packet, there is a paper for each candidate. And we have 7 questions prepared, and I think if we'd like, you will each ask a question. And Mike, shall we start with you on that end?
I can handle that.
Yeah. Okay.
I assume we are not allowed follow-ups? Or are we?
Correct.
No follow-ups?
Right.
We'll follow.
Yeah.
Could you, have to do a resume for everybody?
Good evening, Wayne.
Evening.
We have 7 questions we'll be asking you tonight.
Okay.
Your interview will be limited to no more than 15 minutes.
Okay, can I ask for a favor? I got hearing aids, they don't always work as well as they should, and with the masks,
Yep,
so, please, thank you.
we will try to speak loudly and clearly. Dr. Sprague will be doing the timing. When you get down to about 3 minutes, she'll give you some kind of a sign to let you know that.
All right.
And so it's 7 questions, and if there's time at the end, there'll be time for you to make a closing
Okay.
statement.
You have a microphone as well, if you'd like to use it so the people
Okay.
behind you can hear. I don't think it's on though, there's a...
Right on top, Wayne. Little pushy button.
There you go.
Don?
Sounds like it.
There.
Okay.
There you go.
But Dave Letterman never had that problem.
Okay, go ahead, Mike.
Well, good evening, Wayne.
Good evening.
If you would, please tell us a bit about yourself and why you're interested in serving on the Unified School District of Vanderbilt School Board, please.
Well, you've all got copies of my resume. I've been involved with education since 1993 when I started teaching. Prior to that, I worked in a factory. Went through proverbial midlife crisis, decided I had to do something different, so took a bunch of tests up at Nicolay College and they suggested teaching. And it was like a light bulb went on. And I've been going to school ever since. Started going part-time in 1984. In 1988, I quit my factory job and moved down to Stevens Point. Graduated with a major in English, writing minor. In 2002, I got a master's degree in school guidance and counseling. I retired in 2008. I burned out. I couldn't do ED anymore. So I retired. I went back to school to get a job as a paralegal. A friend of mine is an attorney. I've done some projects for him. Finished that in 2002, 2012, whatever. Anyway, seems like every 10 years I got a degree. I got my bachelor's when I was 42, my master's when I was 52. When I was 62, I finished up that paralegal program. And just a couple of years ago, I had to go back to school. When I started teaching at NTC in 2011, any master's degree allowed you to teach general ed classes. Well, then I had to go back and get 18 credits of English at a master's level, and I finished that last fall. So I don't have to take any more classes, but, and I think that even though I'm retired, I still retired from the district. I'm an adjunct for NTC, for Nicolay College, I'm the guidance counselor at All Saints, and I think I have something to offer the school board as far as real practical experience, both as an educator and someone who worked out in the other world, or what they call the real world, for 20 years before getting an education. So just because you hit a certain age doesn't mean you have to quit.
Okay.
What do you feel are the main responsibilities of the school board?
Excuse me, I couldn't hear you.
What do you feel are the main responsibilities of the school board?
Big responsibility of the school board, I think, is making sure the school district functions realistically. I think we have to make sure that the teachers are taken care of, and in that, if you do that, the students will be taken care of. I think we have to let the public know what our big issues are, what we're up against. Today with COVID, with school funding that's really taken a hit in the last several years, I think that it's our job to make sure that the public is aware of what we are facing and what we need.
Mr. Gagnon, as a school board member, as do most of us, you'll probably be hearing from individuals out in the community who might want to bend your ear. They want to talk to you, give you some advice on how to do your work, or you might get some complaints. How do you think you'd respond to something like that?
As far as complaints go, everybody has a complaint. You're not going to please anybody. When I've told people I'm trying to get on the school board, they tell me it's a thankless job. Well, I think if it's a thankless job, then it's worth doing. Again, we have to make the public aware. We can't always tell them what they want to hear. We have to tell them the reality of it. Over the last several years, we've closed several rural schools, and a lot of people complained that they didn't want those schools closed. And I can understand why you would want your children to go to the same school you went to, the same school your parents went to, your grandparents. But the reality of it is, we simply can't afford them. And it's up to us to explain to the public why we make the decisions we make, and give them a realistic idea of what's going on. Because we know, the school board knows the details, and not everybody does. We have to make them aware of that.
Thank you.
What role does a school board member have in supporting student achievement?
As far as student achievement goes, I think it's directly tied to the teachers, okay? The teachers have to have expectations of their students. They have to be realistic. They have to be compassionate and understanding. And it's a school board's job, I guess, to make sure the teachers have the facilities they need, to have the equipment they need to do the job. Student achievement is based on student effort. I'm teaching at the college right now at NTC and at Nicolay, and I tell my students that I don't grade you, I record your efforts. And I tell that to the students I deal with at All Saints Catholic School, as an elementary guidance counselor. I tell them the teacher can't take off the top of your head, pour that knowledge in, and put the top of your head back on. You have to do the work. And it's not always going to be easy. It's not always going to be fun, but when you learn something new, it's very satisfying. And for little kids, I give them the analogy of tying your shoes. A little kid in first or second grade learns how to tie their shoes. If you try to tie their shoes for them, they're going to get angry because they want that independence. And student achievement will make those students more independent.
Okay, go ahead, Jeannie.
Okay. How should we, as a school community, use equity as a lens for our decision-making?
Could you repeat that, please, again, by hearing and the masks?
Okay. How should we, as a school community, use equity as a lens for our decision-making?
How can we provide equity as what? Again, and I apologize.
Use equity as a lens for our decision-making.
Oh, well, there they are. You didn't tell me it was a two-sided piece of paper.
Or number 5.
How should we use equity as a lens for our decision-making? We like to think that all kids are equal, but they all come from different situations. You get 20 or 30 kids in a classroom, you've got 20 different stories, 20 different family situations, and we have to, that's where the compassion comes in. We have to understand that not every student has the same responsibility, the same opportunities. One thing I noticed last year when the COVID thing hit and they set up hot spots in the parking lots, you know, so a kid could come in with a laptop. How efficient, there was no choice in the matter. It was the best we could do. But how efficient is it for a child to sit in the back seat of the car in a parking lot so they have internet access? And we have to keep in mind that not every child has the same opportunity and the same background. Some kids are a lot more advantaged than others. And we have to keep that in mind and use compassion.
What would district success look like to you?
District success look like to me? A district where the students are succeeding academically and socially, where their teachers feel like they're respected and listened to. In the last several years, we've been hemorrhaging teachers, and I think that's one of the big problems we face. At the last school board meeting, I think Dr. Sprague, you mentioned that they want to make this a destination for teachers. We have to start listening to teachers to see what they need and what they want, and I think we have to do a better job of that. I've talked to several teachers throughout the district, and they seem very dissatisfied. I've talked to several teachers who have left, and they feel that it's really nice to walk down the hall in a school and feel like the administration has your back. And I think we have to do something about that. And a successful district would be one where the teachers want to stay, where the teachers feel they're respected as professionals.
What characteristics or attributes do you have that would make you an effective board member?
I like to think I'm a good listener. I try to listen to all sides. I base my opinions on facts, not hearsay or gossip. I read as much as I can about what's going on in the world, and that's how I base my opinions. I like to think I'm open-minded. I'm a good listener. And again, I like to hear all sides of the issues, and that's how I base my opinions. And I think that's important. You need somebody who will be a listener. You don't want someone who's a yes man. Public calls, the public will ask me, what do I think? Well, I'm not going to tell you what you want to hear. When I was a special ed teacher at the high school, I dealt with EBD students, emotional behavioral disabilities. And a lot of times parents would call me because they had an issue with their student. And if I didn't know what was going on, if I hadn't been told, I would tell the parent, I'll find out everything I can. And I might not tell you what you want to hear, but what you hear from me will be the truth. And they respected that. And I think we have to carry that through with the school board.
Okay. If there's anything you would like to add that we haven't covered in these 7 questions, this is your opportunity.
Okay, well, I think there are three major issues facing the school board right now. Number one, obviously, is the COVID situation. You know, and God bless the teachers, they're doing everything they can. We need to support them in their efforts. Number two, I think, is school funding, and I think as educators, it's up to us to educate the public and our government that we need more money. They have to start pouring more money into education. I heard that through Act 10, the state cut funding to K-12 public schools by $800 million. That was 10 years ago, so now we are several billion dollars behind, and we need more money. It costs money to run a school, not just for the technology and the textbooks, but to retain teachers who were qualified, to pay them enough money so that they'd want to come here and stay here. And then I think a third big issue, again, is teacher retention. Somehow we have to figure out how to keep good teachers here, and we have a lot of good teachers here. That graph that was up at the last school meeting showed how many first-year teachers we have here, and it's unbelievable. I taught at the high school for, I think, 16 years. I go up there now, and I don't see anybody, or 12 years at the high school, excuse me. My math isn't great, that's why I teach English. But I go there now, and I see very few teachers that were there when I retired. Now, granted, that was in 2008, but there are a whole lot of new faces up there. And when you look at how many teachers have left, it's sad. Practically our whole tech ed department at the high school has left in the last couple of years. We've lost several quality special ed teachers. Somehow we have to keep these people here. We have to attract good people and help them, make them want to stay here. So those are the big issues I think we have. So.
Okay.
It?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, well, thank you for your time. When will you make your decision?
Tonight, after all the interviews are
After all
done.
the interviews, yeah. Tonight yet, or?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and you're welcome to stay until that happens.
I probably will.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, you did.
Already ahead of schedule. Yeah, yeah.
I want to go shake everybody's hand.
We have to do it virtually.
Right?
Okay, thank you for coming in. The interview is going to last no more than 15 minutes.
Okay.
Dr. Sprague will be doing the timing, and if you get down to the 3-minute mark, she'll give you some sort of a signal, so that you know that you're there. We have 7 questions for you to answer, and at the end of those 7 questions, if you have something you'd like to add as a closing statement, you can if there is time left.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead, Mike.
Okay, good evening. Tell us a bit about yourself and why you are interested in serving on the Unified School District of Antigo School Board.
I'm a resident of Pearson, Wisconsin, so I've been a resident in Langley County my whole life. I'm an entrepreneur by nature. I love people. I enjoy working with others. I've been the go-to girl for a lot of people in our community to kind of figure things out, what can be done. And I feel very confident that I have some tools, knowledge that I can share. And I'm nervous because I'm gonna calm down. I'm so sorry. My heart's pounding. I've been in business locally for the past 16 years. I'm looking for some career changes. I originally went to college for education to become a teacher. And I just feel like it's time for me to start getting a little bit more involved within the community because I have things that I can share that are very complementary to our community. So that's it.
What do you feel are the main responsibilities of the school board?
Probably the main responsibilities, and I'm coming in this, very green. Make decisions regarding, business planning, financial planning, budget planning, hiring professionals, trusted individuals that are here to take, care of our children. Basically, the school board should be involved in making sure all operational things at each individual school or school district are running in a timely manner and according to budget.
But yeah, as a school board member, you are usually approached by people in the community, people offering you advice, people complaining about something or the other that they feel could be done differently with the school board. In a situation like this, how would you address it?
I would encourage them to start attending the meetings. I mean, it's something that I've always wanted to do, but as a business owner, I never really had time to get involved. And I would encourage them to be involved, to join some of the booster clubs or, get into some of the fundraising projects, become more involved within the community so they know what's going on from a, different perspective. Because sometimes they're hearing something, it's their perception, they're basing what their hearsay is on their perception of a person that was using their perception, you know what I mean? So to me, I'm not a gossiper. And as a trusted advisor in the community for the last 16 years, doing my insurance business, I've learned that you just don't talk. I would just encourage people to get involved themselves so they have firsthand knowledge, especially now with COVID. Everything's live somewhere, on a website somewhere. You guys are posting things, and that's where I'm like, wow, I really need to get involved, and I've been able to see it more too because I was kind of more office confined for a lot of years. I would just encourage them, don't take secondhand information. Find out from the source what's going on. Read, your newspapers and figure it out. And I'm gonna hyperventilate because I have a mask on and I have a little pig nose. so I'm like, hang on just a sec.
Okay. Go ahead and take a minute.
Stop, I don't have COVID.
Keisha, you okay?
I am. It's just that I'm just like, it's hot air and I'm stressing. My heart's racing. And I have a personality and y'all know it, so I'm sorry.
It's tough in that chair.
Yeah.
Keisha, what role does a school board member have in supporting student achievement?
In what? Affording?
What role does a school board member have in supporting student achievement?
I think it's imperative that the school board gets involved. And I don't know where you get your statistics from. I don't know where you get your information from. I don't know how involved, and I apologize for not knowing, but I'm completely new at applying for a position like this. As a person in the community, I want to be very involved with our community. I'm not afraid to approach people. I would love to be right next to a student that's, struggling or needs tutoring, or, I'm a very educated individual, and I guess I'm hoping the school board is more involved with one-on-one or, as much as we can be with our current times, but I can honestly say I don't know, what our limitations are, I mean, as a Christian, I'm a hugger, you know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't know where to put a limitation on that because I don't know what all the school board is authorized to do, I guess, is what I'm getting at. So I would be very new in that department and would love to be as supportive as possible in that, realm. So hopefully there is a lot more hands-on, because it's kind of what I'm looking for, is being involved.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
How should we, as a school community, use equity as a lens for our decision-making?
Did you say equity? Prioritize is the first term that comes to mind. Do a needs analysis on every area that the school board has. I would do a type of fundraising program in every area the school board has a need. If we're not gonna get funds from a certain source, I'd be a marketer, I'd be a go-getter, I'd be, you know what I mean? It would just be a priority-based, needs-based analysis type of thing, so.
What would district success look like to you?
Oh, that's a tough one. I think it starts in the home. It starts with our families, it starts with our children, it starts with how well they score on tests may not always be the answer for everything, but district overall success is keeping our kids engaged, keeping them where they want to learn, where they love to come to school, where there's programs out there that are for every family that's in need of any need that's possible out there. Due to our current pandemic, I feel a lot of positives have come out of a lot of negatives, because it's forcing us as a community to pull together, and people are looking for more of the kind of programs that are out there on ways that they can still provide nutrition and, you know, nutritional meals for their children at home, or you know, doing a type of networking with the homeschooling and engaging and things like that. So I think that the yeah, I think that I just lost my position in my head, so I'm sorry. I'm shaking. I'm normally not this nervous.
It's okay.
You have plenty of time. Go ahead and take a deep breath.
Thank you.
That's the last one, yeah.
I've been the employer doing the interviews for the last 15 years, and this is my first interview that I've gone to, and I was like, whew,
We've been in that.
amongst a bunch of professionals. So I'm so sorry. I'm not normally nervous.
It's okay. You're doing fine.
Okay, good.
So
Thank you.
last one. Take your time. What characteristics or attributes do you have that would make you an effective board member?
I'm personable. I genuinely think positive of a person before any form of negative. I look for, you know, qualities in people. I am self-motivated. I am a learner. I can never stop learning. I like being self-motivated. I am a salesperson. I throw myself into whatever I believe in, and as long as I you know, have the ability to keep a high energy level and an optimistic perspective. I just love working with people in general, and that's where it's time for me to get involved, because I know the community, because they've come to me, but now it's almost like I'm out of the insurance industry and I want to go to them. You know what I mean? So people can see me with the personality and the fact I love to play the piano and I have other gifts than just sitting there being a trusted advisor. So just the fact that didn't have to get me out of bed every day to be self-employed. Everybody knew my office was open from 8 in the morning till, you know, 10 o'clock at night, you know. And I don't know, I feel that I have, you know, maybe some energy that's needed to make, you know, help or change, or not necessarily change, but because I don't know really what there's going on, you know what I mean? But I would love to learn, and I would love to try, and I would love that opportunity.
Okay, that's takes care of the 7 questions, and if you have anything that you would like to add that the 7 questions didn't cover, this is your opportunity to do that.
I would like to ask what all the school board does get involved with when it comes to, you know, more than the hiring and the firing and the decision making and the budget or, you know, making decisions with the schools. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
or did, I guess, I didn't have naughty children yet. So it's like, what do you go to the school board for? You know what I mean? Like, other than budgets, you know what I mean?
Yeah, so
I'd like
we
to know how
do the
involved you are.
budget. I'd
Mhm.
say the most important thing we do is we hire the superintendent, and we evaluate the superintendent to make sure whatever the district goals are, what the goals we have set, that they are being fulfilled, or we want to know how they are going to be fulfilled. As far as those naughty children, that's usually not for the school board unless it gets to the point where somebody's going to get expelled.
Oh, okay, that's the only time I've ever heard school board come up is if somebody had to face the school board for this or that, you know, and,
Yeah, not one of the more pleasant parts of the job.
right.
So, okay, so anything else?
Well, how soon are you looking to fill the position?
We will decide tonight. We will have a vote after all the candidates have interviewed, and then the person will be sworn in at the next board meeting, which is in 2 weeks.
Well, I hope I've made an impression. I'm quite the personality, so, and I'm sorry,
Okay.
I'm so nervous.
It's okay, thanks.
But I really thank you for the opportunity to sit
Yes.
before you all, anyways. I appreciate that much.
Several of us
Thanks
have
for
sat in that chair, so.
Yeah, and it's just like, oh, I'm going from the employer to the employee, and this is a turnaround case, you better get ready.
Okay, it gives you some appreciation what there's,
Right,
Thinking
thank you
when
for
they come to
chuckling
see
about
you.
it at least.
okay.
All right, anything
So-
else?
No, we'll be making the decision at the end. You're welcome to stay until then, either here or up there someplace. But it's an open meeting, so you can stay in the room after your interview.
Oh, and when does the last interview end?
The last interview will end about 7:45.
Okay. Guess I'll stick around.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks.
This is my competition.
Is that, there's a list of questions on there. You just turn it up now.
Yes, it is.
Much more nervous than that. Yeah, makes me a little nervous. Make sure we get this
We get the, that's right. We get the
Actually, if during these breaks, there's a letter from Dean Dietrich on how we conduct voting and what happens if there's a tie or everything. So it's in the packet here. It's in the packet.
No, I don't have it. Did I read that?
It was behind the questions.
It is. It's the last page behind the questions.
Left side.
Oh, maybe this one she won't need it, maybe. Oh, sorry. This is all done, yeah.
Hi.
Hi, Jill.
How are you guys?
We are good.
Good. Good.
So we have a list of 7 questions for you that you're going to answer. Your interview will last no more than 15 minutes. Dr. Sprague will be keeping time, and if you get down to about 3 minutes, she's going to give you some sort of a signal so you know how much time you have left.
Okay.
When you are done with the 7 question, and if there is time left, you'll have an opportunity to make a closing statement.
That sounds good.
Okay, we'll start with Mike.
Hey, Joe.
Hi.
Also, the questions are in front of you there in
Yes.
case with these on you don't hear us so well. I know we had a problem with it a little earlier, but the questions are there for you. So If you would please, tell us a bit about yourself and why you are interested in serving on the Unified School District of Antico School Board.
Sure. So, a little bit about myself. I am born and raised here in Antigo, and I've returned. So I'm raising my family here currently, and plan to stick around. I have strong family ties, so our community is very important to me. When we say Antigo strong, that really hits home for me. I take a lot of pride in the community, in the relationships, in our education system, in all that our teachers, faculty, and staff do for our students and our families, and that's really what I find valuable to myself as a parent, as a taxpayer, and as a provider in the community. So I am interested in becoming a member on the Board of Education because supporting our community and our district is very important to me for multiple reasons, as a parent, as a provider, as a taxpayer.
Thank you. What do you feel are the main responsibilities of the school board?
Good question, JD. Main responsibilities of the school board, I would view to be an advocate for students, teachers, staff, and the community, to be a liaison, to address big issues and small issues, to seek to brainstorm and solution focused on ways to combat barriers and make them into opportunities. I would say engaging in a lot of collaboration and active listening would be very important as a board member, and seeking expertise and knowledge in a lot of different areas to make well-informed decisions. I think probably the most important responsibility would be to act in a respectful manner, which can be difficult because the board does make a lot of difficult decisions. But I think respect is really important in managing that because you'll never make everybody happy. But if you can do so with an open mind and being respectful about it, I think that certainly helps create a strong alliance between your community and your Board of Education.
As a school board member, you will likely receive some advice and complaints from community members and even the staff and students. How would you respond to those things?
Fortunately, in my line of work, I have routinely dealt with complaints or concerns. So I feel as though, again, when I, as an individual, when I listen with an open mind and respectful engagements, eye contact, nonverbals, things like that is really important because I may not agree with the other person's standpoint, but the way I respond is really going to set a tone in terms of if somebody's voice is felt as though they're heard. So that would again go back to being like the liaison of the informally following steps policy protocol with this complaint was brought to my attention, and now the formal steps to share that out or respond appropriately. So I think my role would be to listen. I like to repeat back to make sure I have things correct. I don't ever like to assume because that would be putting words in somebody else's mouth, to make sure I have it correct and then bring it back to the team, to the board.
Jill, what role does a school board member have in supporting student achievement?
Student achievement is really important to me, and it's something that I'm very passionate about because I think achievement can be measured in a variety of ways, and it all depends upon the way in which you view it, what your personal lens is. So the role of a school board member in supporting student achievement would look differently depending on the topic or the context. When you talk student achievement, when we have professionally, I do a lot of service facilitation and team meetings, collaboration directly with each of our schools, faculty, staff, administration. So when I think achievement, I immediately go to, in what type of context. So are we talking the student has truancy problems is hardly at school. We're concerned about where they are, their well-being, their safety. But when they're here, they don't act like they want to be here, and their responses are disrespectful at minimum. So when I talk in that context, I would say achievement would be what does that student need to get them here on time? What is, is achievement basing it off of if they attend class, or if they arrive to class on time, or if they make it to class for part of that class period in general. The achievement is that they're in the class if they haven't been attending before. So, long story short is, I think it all depends on what the context is. I like to, look at the barriers as opportunities. So I would view achievement based off of what opportunities you're seeking to find.
Thank you.
How should we as a school community use equity as a lens for our decision making?
This is an interesting question because I guess in my mind I immediately go to why wouldn't we use, or how wouldn't we use equity as the foundation? So I guess it's hard for me to answer because I just don't see it any other way. So everybody is equal. We all have different backgrounds, we all have different strengths and weaknesses, but that doesn't make any one person different or better, stronger. I think when you, again, look at it from your lens of what we're trying to achieve and accomplish, equality would be at the cornerstone of that. So I don't know if I answered your question, but I just don't see a way in which I wouldn't use equality in general.
What would district success look like to you, Jill?
District success, that's a very broad question, and I feel like in my mind I'm going a lot of different ways, so I apologize in advance if I'm going in a lot of different directions. I think district success looks like strong retention rates. I think district success looks like providing opportunities, various opportunities for students to meet each category. I say category of like extracurricular, sports, band, you name it, giving opportunities so that success looks differently for each person, but as a community we offer a lot of different ways for student success academically and extracurricularly. So district success would be that we would be a district that when we recruit or we have openings, people want to come here, people want to stay here. District success would also be that collaborating with, a district teacher with another school district, that we become the district people want to come to and want to be at and choose a career because of a strong community and a strong school district. So success is measured in a lot of different ways. We all see the same thing. We just look at it differently. So I think when you can seek success in different ways, that will benefit everybody. It's really helpful. Again, you're not always going to make everybody happy, but providing a lot of opportunities for diverse populations.
Thanks.
What characteristics or attributes do you have that would make you an effective board member?
I believe that my background is one thing that is a strength for me in terms of working with victims of domestic and sexual abuse, with being a child abuse and neglect social worker, and having those experiences, good and bad meaning, again, can be viewed differently, but helping to strengthen families, remove barriers, and currently as a case manager for mental health and behavioral health youth. I mentioned earlier, my role currently is kind of overseeing a team where the student or the youth consumer is the team lead, is a team captain, so they're directing their treatment. And so pre-COVID, it would be quite normal to see myself and my coworkers in the schools, making contact with the kids in our caseload, with the administration, with law enforcement, with the teachers, following up with a psychiatrist, with mentor, with primary care provider, pediatricians. So I think my attributes would be that I'm well-rounded in the sense of being able to utilize strengths of everybody and bringing a team together, and not one person has the answer, and not one person makes all decisions, but collaboratively and collectively you can make strong choices, and I feel as though I do a good job and I have a strength in navigating difficult situations and using all of those opportunities to work with people of all different populations and backgrounds professionally to be a strong individual and a strong community member. So I do feel that those attributes are beneficial.
Okay, that concludes the 7 questions, and if at this time you have anything you would like to add that hasn't been covered in the 7 questions, this is your opportunity to do so.
Okay, sorry. Anything that hasn't been added or I haven't added?
Anything that you'd like to have us know.
Well, I guess I would close with just simply sharing that becoming a member on the Board of Education has been a goal of mine for several years. And I started that journey by just beginning to educate myself and seeking information, reaching out to board members, attending meetings, addressing the board as a whole, being a liaison and an advocate for staff, following minutes, trying to become well-rounded in what would this look like for me and is this a good fit, because I think it's only the best use of my time and yours if I'm making this decision because I've done the background and I feel like I would be a good fit and a strong member. So in closing, I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to have this opportunity and I'm appreciative of it. And quite honestly, when I learned that you had a number of applicants, it made me really excited. And I was not concerned about my chances of not getting on the board. Yes, this is a goal, and I would love to be, and I think it would be a very strong candidate to be on the board. But big picture is it's about the district and the community. So I think it's important for you to know about me that I'm selfless, and knowing that you have a lot of applicants that have strong backgrounds is exciting for me because that means our district is going to excel no matter what decision the board chooses tonight.
Okay. So we will be making our decision after we interview all candidates, and you are welcome to stay until then. This is an open meeting, so you can stay in the room here while the other candidates interview, or you can wait somewhere else.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. What are these guys doing on time? They're not getting pretty close.
Between 2 and 3 left each time.
Oh, okay, that's not so much. I didn't get the paper today.
Maybe Tuesday, that's coming up.
Well, we got Monday's paper today, at least I did.
Okay.
I didn't even look at this.
We have.
Oh, you didn't?
Yeah.
Well, it was yesterday.
Haven't came to
I haven't. I didn't open the newspaper, I just went home to drop it off in the room and I left.
I don't know if they put it in or not.
Monday.
Is she dead?
No. Well, I'm just yesterday, yeah. Thanks.
Is it days of parenting?
No, she said, yeah, the Restraint.
What's his relationship? Yeah. The actual one that we do is the days of parenting. They say on the road that I have to know it's almost like after people are taking your breath.
Yeah.
It's very painful when you literally have breath from your eyes. And
That's what she was expecting.
yeah. But some places are doing this and they're doing the rapid silence. So maybe that's what
I haven't talked to her.
rapid silence.
Good evening, Dave.
Hi, Andy.
So your interview will be no more than 15 minutes. Dr. Sprague will be keeping time, and if you get down to the point of having about 3 minutes or less left,
Look at the signs, yeah.
she will give you some kind of a sign.
Okay.
We have 7 questions for you to answer. I think they're right there in front of you also.
Yep.
And we'll start with Mike.
Hey, Dave.
I'm,
If you would, please tell us a bit about yourself and why you're interested in serving on the Unified School District of Antigo School Board.
well, I've been involved in education since 1976 when I started my teaching career. From there, I was a wrestling coach. I ended up becoming the assistant high school principal at Mauston. A year later, I was their middle school principal. 4 years later, I was the high school principal in Princeton, Wisconsin. 5 years after that, I took the job as the high school principal in Wittenberg-Burnhamwood, where I was at for 3 or 4 years, and then there was a recall election. I became the acting superintendent. 6 months later, I was the superintendent, where I was another 15 years. As their superintendent, after I retired, I ended up helping out Leona for 3 years as their fill-in superintendent. And so I've been involved with education most of my life. I currently teach as a substitute teacher in Elko. In fact, I have a 13-day assignment starting tomorrow morning. So, as I said, I've always been involved in education. I believe with the experience that I have, I think I can be an asset to the school board.
Thank you.
What do you feel are the main responsibilities of the school board?
Well, if you think of a corporation, you're the board of directors. You hire Julie to run the district. She has people who work for her in certain capacities that are part of the administration, and everything funnels down to the teachers who do the day-to-day work with our students. So, as a board member, I know board members get lots of phone calls sometimes when there's things going on that people aren't sure about. Your role should be to take it to its lowest level. So if a parent calls you and has a concern about what's going on in their classroom, the first question should be, have you talked to the teacher about the issue? If you don't get satisfaction at the teacher issue, then you send them to the principal. And you work your way up all the way to the superintendent if they aren't getting satisfaction, and the buck basically stops with her. So basically your role is to be the board, to make decisions, to listen to the administration and their recommendations, look into them, make sure that they are sound recommendations backed by statistics or whatever. And from that point, you make a decision. And as I put in my letter to you, the biggest thing board members have to learn is that when a decision is made, if they're in the minority, As soon as that decision is made, you are now in the majority. And so I say to you, if I am selected and if I'm on an issue on what is perceived as the wrong side, when the final ballot vote is taken, I will immediately switch and become part of supporting the majority in front of the district.
Well, you almost stole the thunder from my question, but I was going to ask you, as a board member, when you receive any complaints or sometimes unsolicited advice from parents, community members, staff members, how do you respond to those?
Well, unfortunately,
Yes,
I
you-
just went through that. But the biggest thing, I think, is that you are the voice of the people. You will have people who contact you. And it still comes down to how I had to be a superintendent. When I was a superintendent for all those years, the biggest thing when you are with someone who has an issue, you make sure that you pay attention, you give them your time, you listen to what they have to say. They may not always agree with the decision you have to make, but you give them the time and show them that you care about their issue. And then that goes with what I said about taking it to the lowest level. Because if it's just a teacher-parent problem with their child, they have to work it out with the teacher because the teacher's there and going to stay there for probably the rest of the school year.
Thank you.
Dave, what role does a school board member have in supporting student achievement?
When I became the superintendent at Wittenberg-Burnham, they had a policy that if a member of the community applied, they got the job. And basically where I took them to is that every time you hire someone, whether it be a custodian, a teacher, administrator, you hire the best person. I don't care where they live. I wanted the best person to come in to do the job. And so, to get to this question about student achievement, we want to make good hires. We want to support our administration to hire the best people that we can so that we have the best teachers in our classroom. Because if we have the best teachers, and I'm looking at one right now, because my wife Carol always said, you were her 3 kids' best teacher in elementary.
Wow.
And you probably heard that from her many times. But that's what you do. You hire the best people at all positions. That will help students to achieve. So, as a board member, you support your administrators to hire the best people at all levels. And then for them to support those teachers, to help them improve, to become better teachers.
Thank you.
How should we, as a school community, use equity as a lens for our decision-making?
Equity has a nice ring, but it's very hard to do. Our Constitution says that all people are deemed equal, and we should look at whatever race, creed, color, they're all equal in our eyes. That doesn't mean that each child is the same. And that's the toughest part of being a teacher, is because if you have a class of 20, you have 20 individuals who don't necessarily learn the same way. They don't necessarily act the same way. Some are on medications, some are in poverty, but yet we have to treat all those kids as best as we can equally. And to me, that's what equity is about.
What would district success look like to you?
I'll drink that later.
Well, you can drink now if you want.
That's okay. Some would say that success would be measured by how many students go on to college, get a degree, and have success. Some would say we have a community who have certain jobs that need filled. Some of our students aren't made for going to college. Some of our students need training so that jobs that are out there, when they graduate from high school or a 2-year program afterwards where they learn a certain skill, we have to get those students to that place. So, to me, success of a district is that when that student leaves here as a senior, they have the opportunity to go to college, to go to a work program, to go right into the workforce, because they're all different. But to me, if we have kids who stay in this district, work here, some will leave and go other places and be successful, some will come back after college. But the idea is that we will be a successful school district if we're turning out people who are going to be good citizens for this community.
What characteristics or attributes do you have that would make you an effective board member?
Well, I think because I've had so many roles in a school district throughout my career, I think that makes me a good asset to be on this board. And as I wrote in my letter, I was the superintendent at Whitburn for 16, 17 years. And you don't, at that time, the average time for a superintendent was like 3.5 years. I had a 9-member board, and when when I ended my career, I had one board member that was still on my 9-member team. And the way you become a successful superintendent or a successful board member simply is that you tell the people the truth. If you tell lies, it ends up that you end up telling more lies to cover the lies you've already had, and it's real simple to remember the truth because once you've told it, it's easy to remember. And as I get older, it's good to tell the truth because that I can remember. But and that's the way you have to deal with the people, whether it be the people of the community, the people who work for us. We just have to be honest with them. And if you are truly honest, never telling a lie, we'll have success. And with that, I hope on my 69th birthday that you present me with an extra present of being a member of the school board.
Today's your birthday.
Yeah.
Happy
I'm
birthday.
69 today.
Okay, Dave, that takes care of the 7 questions, and you have about a minute or a minute and a half left if you have anything to add.
I guess the only thing I would add is I know some of you were on this board when I applied for a 1-year fill-in superintendent's job. And that was back in 2012. I was asked to run for the school board back when Smoke Kretz retired. He came to me and said, Dave, run for my seat. And I thought it was too soon to do it because obviously I didn't get that 1-year position. But what I want to tell you, I've talked about honesty, now I want to talk about integrity. It came down to 2 people. And the second person who got the job came from Boston. And when I was doing my doctoral work at Edgewood, he was my advisor. When I went for my defense, it was the first day I ever met him. And I was told the reason was because he was having problems in his job. Now, if I really had wanted that job so badly and was the kind of person who would do anything to get a job, some school board members would have known that he was getting thrown out of Boston. But as a school district administrator, and dealing with another school district administrator in that position, my integrity would not allow me to do it. And so I kept my mouth shut, and as all of you know, he was here for less than a year, and there were some issues later on in a court of law, which I didn't know about at the time. But my point is, I have integrity, and I will always tell you the truth. And with that, like I said, I hope you make a wise decision tonight.
Okay, thank you. And you're welcome to stick around, and we'll be making the decision at the end of the meeting.
Actually, I'm not going to stick around. Like I said, it's my birthday. I'm heading over to see my wife, my 2 grandsons, and my daughter. So,
Okay.
with that, thank you for your time, and I appreciate the chance to be on your board. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What's that? No, not yet. As he said, that's something, right? What? JD said he's almost over his run president.
Didn't hear it, but I enjoy the laughter.
Let's see how we do in time here. We're back to payment time.
5 minutes.
Good evening, Chelsea.
Good evening, how are you today?
Good. And thank you for coming in. We have a list of 7 questions we're going to ask you. Your interview will take no longer than 15 minutes. Dr. Sprague will be keeping time, and when you get down to about 3 minutes, she will give you some sort of a sign to let you know that. And with that, we will begin with Mike.
Evening, Chelsea.
Good evening.
If you would, please tell us a bit about yourself and why you're interested in serving on the Unified School District of Vandago School Board.
Sure. So my name is Chelsea Pan, as they have mentioned. I'm a new attorney in town. I just moved back. I grew up here, and I went on to Marquette and just moved back in May. And I heard about the opening, and I was very excited because I have a lot of education in my family, teachers, social workers in the school district. So I was excited to be able to put my ability of helping on a board to help with the school district. I don't have the superpower of teaching, so I thought, what other ways can I help? And this seemed like a good one.
What do you feel are the main responsibilities of a school board?
I think first and foremost is learning about the issues that come before it, taking the time to read and research on the different topics, seeing how the different options could affect different people in the situation, and then making decisions based on that. Supporting the staff, whether it's teachers or other staff in the school, and making sure that students are getting the best education they can.
As a school board member, you'll probably receive some advice unsolicited at times, as well as complaints from community members, from parents, from staff members. How do you deal with that?
I think especially right now with COVID, it's a situation where a lot of people will be happy and a lot of people will be sad no matter what you do. I'm sure it's with other decisions you are all making on a daily basis. You can just try to make the best decision that you have and take the criticism and try to improve what you're doing, but understand that you can't always please everybody.
Okay, Chelsea, what role does a school board member have in supporting student achievement?
I think a student achievement looks different for everybody. I went on to higher education, so student achievement for me meant high GPA, good scores to get into good colleges, but that's not the case for a lot of people in our community. My fiance is a potato farmer, so he wasn't interested in some of those scores. He was interested in learning other schools or other skills that would help him. So I think student achievement could be looked at differently, but just giving those students the resources, whatever that may look like, to help them, the encouragement and any other community involvement that they may need.
Thank you.
How should we, as school community, use equity as a lens for our decision-making?
I think using equity would look at everybody in every different situation and try to make what's fair and just for those, and what may be fair and just for one student might not be fair and just for another student. I'm looking at each situation differently from a different lens and trying to see what equity looks like to those students, because what it might look like to us might not be fair and equitable for the student.
Chelsea, what would district success look like to you?
Kind of going back to my previous statement, each student has a different goal, but making sure that all of our students are getting a good education and preparing them for their future, whatever that may be. District success would also be looking at the staff members, making sure they're supported in whichever way we can, making sure that our education system is working with our community and supporting our community is supporting that system however it may. Just providing as much support to the students and the staff that we possibly could, and making sure that those students are getting the education that they deserve.
What characteristics or attributes do you have that would make you an effective board member?
Well, first and foremost, I was recently a student, so I can bring that to the board. I remember different decisions that were made and how they affected me as a student. So that would probably be a unique attribute to bring to the board. I also just got my law degree. I haven't put it too far to use, but I still have it. I also think that with that law degree, I've learned that reading and research to make a decision is very helpful, and I'd take the time to learn whatever I needed to on the decision that would be before me. I think that I grew up in this community, so I know some of its values, and I think that would be helpful too.
Okay, that takes care of the 7 questions, and I think you have some time left here if you have anything else you would like to add as a closing statement.
Okay. Just as I said before, I have a lot of family members in education, and I know the work that goes into it to help the students achieve what they need to. I know right now especially it's very tough to be a teacher and be in the school district and providing that same education to the students. But I think that being on the school board would be the best way to impact those students and support those students and making sure that whether it's virtual or in person, they're getting the best education they can, especially in this community where it's such a tight-knit community, letting them know that we're here for them. And I'd love to serve on the board and bring whatever knowledge and experience I have and help you make any decisions that you need.
Okay, so we will be making our decision after all candidates have interviewed, and you're welcome to stay. It's an open meeting, so you're welcome to stay in the room here, or you can wait elsewhere if you'd like.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thanks, Kelsey.
Yes, follow-up questions?
You always think it's a lot more fun. Than follow-up questions.
We don't want to be called.
Because you have to decide, we have medication. There's some of them,
That's why we
they mostly prescription.
Used to be, I used to sit in the way back in the community. And look at everybody's feet and look at their faces to see what they have.
Or so many patients.
Oh, there you go.
Those shoes and everything, and I could never walk in them.
I've done marathon and people say that.
And the socks had the little dog tail holding the toe together, the red
Is
tail.
that melatonin? You know, whatever the example when they took the cold medicine?
That's the other
They listen to me and stuff.
little bit,
Melatonin is
the
much
dog.
of the gland actually
Oh,
secretes
hush,
that
hush.
taste.
The year the dad had
When you sit and sleep in a quiet, that's what is released.
rattling away,
So
and it lived
I
in the
have
window of the
one
store, and then I
fiber
put the
that
dog
you
on
got
the
for
phone,
$5 per 100
and it was named the dog.
And if I take it in 15 minutes,
And then they named it
how
Miss,
which I never finished them.
like Misfits. And the thing weighed about 400 pounds.
You're really good at smiling when you're sleeping.
Sure.
Good skill.
Sure.
I brought a copy of the Fab Labs guide that I had mentioned in my letter and on my resume if you guys look at it. Like,
Okay, thank you for coming in, Angie.
thank you. Thanks for having me.
We have 7 questions here for you tonight. Your interview will take no more than 15 minutes. Dr. Sprague will be keeping time, and when you get down to 3 minutes or so, she will give you some sort of a sign
Okay.
to let you know that. And with that, we will start with Mike.
Good evening, Angie. If you would, please, if you tell us a bit about yourself and why you're interested in serving on the Unified School District of Antigo School Board, please.
Sure. So I've lived in the Antigo area my entire life. I've raised 3 kids. I still have 1 at home. And I'm involved in the community for in a number of ways and for like 15, 20 plus years. I own apartments around town, and so I have a whole diverse group of people that I have worked with over the years. I currently am enrolled in college myself. I'm getting my public administration and public policy bachelor's degree. And why this is important to me is because I've seen my two older kids go through the school district, and now I have a 12-year-old daughter that's coming up through the school district, and it's important to me that we have a strong education system for her to become a responsible adult that, you know, is a functioning adult. In other words, I don't, want her living in my basement when she's 30. So, that's why I have a passion for rural communities, and I want to see our community of Amigo thrive again. And in order to do that, I think we need to have a strong and good education system.
What do you feel are the main responsibilities of a school board member or a school board?
I think the main role is setting policies, making sure that the school district is running very efficiently, and then also as a supportive role. So supporting the administrative offices, Julie supporting her, supporting the teachers, celebrating the wins of our school district. I think it's important for the school board to tell the story of our school district. So, I guess not really explaining the details of decisions, but on a high view, explaining to the public so that they can understand this is why this is happening, this is the issues, this is what we're addressing, this is how far we've come so far. And I think that's something that needs to be told. Because I think right now the public doesn't have a good grasp of really what's going on at, on a whole district level.
As a school board member, you might receive advice and complaints from community members, staff members, students, families, etc. How do you respond to something like that?
That's a great question, especially in a small community. So I was on the county board for 2 terms, a total of 4 years. And what I would do is I would listen to their complaints and listen to the situation, ask, depending on the situation, I would ask different questions. But then it goes back to, where does this fall into, I guess, the hierarchy of management. So if somebody has a problem with a teacher and they're coming to a school board member, I think that they should be addressing that problem with the teacher first. So I would, without asking too many questions, I would say, you need to talk to your teacher. Have you talked to the teacher yet? And then work their way up through management that way, I guess. As far as the bigger issues and stuff like that, I think it's our job not to become gossipers, if you will, within the community, right? Not to feed into that. And I think it's important to bring ideas and resources to Julie for her to be able to implement those.
Angie, what role does a school board member have in supporting student achievement?
I would say our role is to support Julie in the way that the administration is who implements the policies and the programs, right? And I think that our job is to support her and to support the teachers as a whole. And then when we have the wins, there's different achievements or something like that, the school board could be involved with at that level. But not to get, not to be micromanaging, I guess is my thing there is we don't want to micromanage teachers trying to have them, with student success. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Angela, how should we as a school community use equity as a lens for our decision making?
Oh, that's a great question. So, I think that we should be bringing in different groups. I think that having a greater perspective on things often helps determine what real issues, what the real problems are. Because how can you set policies, how can you address anything if you don't know what the real problem is? And oftentimes that, in order to do that, you need to hear from parents, or you need to hear from community members, or whatever. So having discussions, or roundtables, or something like that, and then we as a board would take that and work together to create a policy that would address the needs that have been discovered.
Angie, what would district success look like to you?
District success would be where we have strong community engagement, we have strong employer engagement, and our ranking through DPI would be going up. I think that it's a very doable goal to have, and again, going back to wanting to see the community thrive, our average age of our workers in Langley County is 48 years old. A lot of baby boomers are retiring, and so that's creating a workforce gap. Well, when we have people that are looking to move here for work, one of the things that they're looking at is the schools. What level of education are my kids going to be getting? And right now, we, through DPI, when they Google it, you don't see too positive right now because it says that we're barely meeting expectations. So as a parent, as a young workforce person, that would be an important issue for me to move to here for work. So I think that would be what success looks like, because that's going to not only affect the school, but it's also going to be a success for the entire community.
What characteristics or attributes do you have that would make you an effective board member?
I think I would be a good asset to the board because I'm very resourceful. I draw upon other people's knowledge. I like to have, I always say I always have a team of people that I work with, and that, you don't want to be the smartest, think of yourself as the smartest one on the team, because if that's the case, then you don't have a very good team. And so I'm very resourceful. I like to come, bring in ideas and just bounce ideas off. Whether they work out, whether they don't, but it's something to talk about. Another thing is that I think supporting our teachers and supporting administration is very important. Not only in the fact that keeping them accountable, but in a good way, but I also celebrating the wins and their successes, and making sure that we tell that story to our community.
Okay, that takes care of the 7 questions, but if you have something else you would like to add or have us know.
Sure. I just want to say that everybody is doing a great job, especially with this school year. as there's so much going on with COVID and, you know, and trying to figure out the different learning devices and different platforms and everything else that's going on with that. I just want to say you guys and all the teachers are doing a great job. My daughter's in 7th grade. We've had some technical difficulties, but the teachers have been great. Absolutely great to work with. And so yeah, so I'm guessing we're going to be getting on track here real soon. So I just wanted to say that.
Okay?
You have any other questions for me?
No, that's it. We're gonna be done with the 7. And we'll be making the decision later tonight. You're welcome to stay here, or you can wait outside if you'd like.
All right.
Angie, did you want the copy of the?
Oh, yes. I'll just go.
Nope, we're gonna finish this up right now.
section. Will we show of hands or?
We'll paper ballots. I requested paper ballots. It's not a secret ballot, so yeah. Good evening, Stanley.
Good evening.
Thank you for coming in tonight. We have 7 questions for you that we'll be asking. Your interview will last no longer than 15 minutes, and Dr. Sprague will be keeping track of the time, and when you get down to about 3 minutes, if you do, she'll give you some sort of a signal. And with that, we will begin. And with the mic.
Stanley, good evening. If you would, please tell us a bit about yourself and why you are interested in serving on the Unified School District of Antigo School Board.
Originally, I'm from McHenry, Illinois. Lived in Wisconsin for probably since 2011. Been in the Antigo area for about 5 years now, approximately. I currently work at Amron as a chemical attendant, but I've been there for about 2 years now. And why? I saw a need. The school board had put out there was a need for people to serve, and I said, why not? Yeah, I enjoy working with the kids on the carnival that I used to work for, and I said, this is probably a good opportunity for me.
What do you feel are the main responsibilities of a school board?
To the students of the district, to make sure they get an education and we're serving them properly. And there is no student left behind.
Cindy, as a school board member, you will likely receive some advice or complaints from people in the community or from staff members. How do you respond to something like that?
I'd be honest with them. I'd tell them how I felt and whether I agreed with them or not.
Stanley, what role does a school board member have in supporting student achievement?
I think it has a great deal and to do with it. If a student doesn't succeed, is it because we didn't do enough to support that student in their education, or is it something we could have done differently? I believe every student should have the opportunity for a good education regardless of their learning ability.
Stanley, how should we as a school community use equity as a lens for our decision-making?
I'm not sure how to answer that one. Can you clarify that question a little better?
How should we as a school community use equality as a lens for our decision-making?
I think we should take everything into consideration, even the things we may not, as a board, like to consider, but I think everything should be considered as a whole, and what's best for the student ultimately should be considered. Because ultimately, it's not us going to school here, it's the student and the future students of our district. And, you know, if the government measures schools by a grade and district by grade, we would like to have a good grade. And I would think that all the students reflect the district and the board as well.
Stanley, what would district success look like to you?
I would say district success would, to me, would be that every student has the opportunity to learn, regardless of what the problem is. When I went to school, it took them 6 years, that district, to figure out I had a learning problem. I don't learn like everybody else. And I was actually in a private school at the time, and that teacher was not just an ordinary teacher. That one teacher was special ed trained. And when they realized, she realized that I would not learn in the mainstream way, they tried a few things. When they couldn't cost-wise accommodate me, you know, they had a conversation with my folks, and they decided to reach out to the local district to say, hey, he's got a learning problem. We know he's got a learning problem. Can you work with him? And I ended up working with him, but it took from kindergarten to 6th grade for somebody in the school system to figure out, and they just kept passing me along. And I think that's not something that's really, if we're passing them along, how do we know they're learning anything? You know, so I think we should do the best we can to ensure they are learning and being a productive member of society. Whether their dreams are to be a doctor or a teacher or a lawyer or a police officer, I think they should all have, regardless of their whatever in life they are, their limitations or their race or color, their gender, they should have the ability, even if they want to be president of the United States. I think they should have that ability to. And if the district, as a district, we give those kids the tools to eventually one day do that job. And it's not just, okay, we're giving them the tools to pass along to the whatever college they go to, and so on. So what we teach them here in the district goes on, they take that on. And they look to us as a board and how we act and how we present ourselves as role models to aid them in their life.
What characteristics or attributes do you have that would make you an effective board member?
Well, like I said, I worked for a carnival for a number of years. I worked probably about 7 years full-time. I still help them part-time. I don't do it anymore because of the money. Currently, I make what I make now will in a month, and it takes me about half a season or more to make. It just financially, it's not in my best interest. But I loved working with the kids, and I think they're the important part of the future. I'd hate to live in a future where I'm the last. My generation's the last generation. I think as a society, we're here to teach the next generation and so on. And I feel that whatever we can do to aid in their knowledge and help them so that they can pass along to the next generation of people how to live, how to educate, how to do things in a positive way, not just a negative way. I mean, you see in the news all this negativity, but rarely do you see a positive news story where somebody went out of their way to do something for somebody. Just read a news article this morning. A guy from Wisconsin, he's in, I believe, Ohio, I think. He jumped into water to save somebody drowning. Well, he didn't make it. He gave his life trying to save somebody else. Was that wrong? No. But you didn't hear that in the mainstream media. All you hear is the negative stuff. You didn't hear the guy that went out of his way to try to save somebody. That may have known that he wasn't probably going to make it out of there. But he did it anyways.
Were you going to say more on that question?
No.
No, okay. So that takes care of the 7 questions, but you have some time left on your 15 minutes here. If there's anything you would like us to add, and like us to know.
Okay, well, besides doing this was a second thought to help with the district. My first one was I seen a post from the school district asking for volunteer coaches. I was talking with Tom Schofield for a while, back and forth. We were emailing and discussing options. Where I started at, where I volunteered for, is not where I ended up. I ended up in something that I probably wouldn't have thought I would have sport. Middle school volleyball, intramural volleyball. When they told me the season, and I was a little disappointed. But then I go, okay, this is something I can learn. I can use this short period of time to fine tweak, and next year I'll be more prepared for a season, and I can do better. But I'm not waiting until next season to learn more. I've already started on my own, and I think that's important that the kids have an option for sports. Whether it's just, yeah, they might be disappointed because they're only playing their fellow schoolmates. They're not going. But look at it this way, we're helping you keep you fresh for next year. There's always next year. You know?
Okay.
They help them improve and show them that we all can try to do a little bit of something, even if it makes us uncomfortable.
Okay. So we will be making our decision here. You're the last one to interview, so we will be moving right on to our vote, and you're welcome to stay and see what the outcome is.
Okay.
Will we take a 5-minute break?
Okay, the board's going to take a 5-minute break, restroom break, and then we'll come back to voting.
Thank you.
Yeah. I just want to remind the board that this is not an opportunity to go out and discuss who you're voting for, but there's certainly plenty of weather to talk about.
Folder, everything comes back. Yes. Okay.
Mary Kate, okay. If you want to.
Jim, in the folder there was a thing that you might, about voting.
The voting rules, okay, I'll keep those up.
Yeah, if you read it. Mary Kay and I have gone over it, and we think we know what we're doing.
Okay, yeah.
We're voting on
Paper ballot.
Yeah, just nobody vote for one person.
Because then it's
Easier. Such a nice problem to have.
yeah.
When you distributed.
Jim and I.
Oh, that's the count. It's okay, yes.
Can you see?
You do have spare paper for the other 6 rounds of voting.
I have 6 ballots in
This girl's.
And where's that deck of cards?
in my purse. Yeah, I got it.
I need to count the cards.
It's sealed.
Oh, it's.
Oh, well, you gotta get those jokers
It's
out
like
of
being
there.
at a, like probably on the top as well. It's like being at a casino. Okay.
Is someone sitting on that spot over there?
No, I can take my things off.
Because I got.
Tim, will you check
one
that
personal
mic? I
notes
think
and
the
stuff.
batteries went out. We were just going to use it later in the meeting, if, like Amy wanted to share. If I can't hear. Oh, is it on now?
I turned it off, but it must have an automatic.
It's hard to recognize people on
Maybe.
these ones.
Okay.
Oh, did it?
Thank
But I
you.
was on the.
So you want it on?
Yeah.
I was just curious to see what the. Yes. Change my phone.
Tim, could you turn that mic on?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. We did.
Did you still need the mic for the?
We thought we might use it when an administrator from the back speaks, we could run it on.
No.
We've
I
had
had
trouble
to text
hearing
you.
from way back there.
Yeah.
I should probably take this out.
Thank you, Dustin.
Yeah. You got the original. Yes, thank you. Okay. Good.
You should probably always have that mic in front of you, Andy, and we got the camera on. People could hear you a lot better.
Could hear me better?
Well, I bet, because when I did that one on remotely, I could hear you and Julie, but everybody else I couldn't hear so good.
We've never had one here.
So I wonder how come you guys maybe just talk so
loud.
Yes.
I fear I do have my father's voice.
Yeah.
He used to scare my friends when they'd go home down. He's just loud.
Hey, were you digging today?
We were. We dug some of mountains. It yielded at least more than 250 bags. That was not a total disaster. Still a lot less than last year, not that I ever heard a number.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so we got rained out for a couple hours. Today was the first day for us.
Well, maybe some people have been digging.
Yeah, Matt started yesterday, and Dan Hafner started like Friday.
Okay.
This feels weird, because we started a week earlier last year.
Yeah, but you got a good week coming up next week.
Good. I didn't look that far ahead, I was just looking at the rain tomorrow.
You girls need another one to
Next
warm
week
up?
is looking good. Thank you.
Yeah, we only were drinking heavily tonight. Thursdays?
So Tim has it memorized. Certain number of days.
I maybe through this.
Okay, but it's not supposed to. Correct.
Yeah.
You would have to read. I know, that's why we've been arguing. My first year, was very surprised with Wisconsin.
Now is my chance to sit there.
Wisconsin.
Mike, you're one of the few people who haven't sat in that chair that's on the board.
This is for free.
Five of us have.
All of them are on that.
No, I haven't had to sit in that chair. I've sat in this one, I've sat in that one, I've sat in that one. I sat over there.
I remember.
You prefer this final.
Yes, and there can't think of any.
Getting
But
more
there
smart.
is.
Okay,
Would have had to.
back to work.
Bring on the dancing girls.
Yeah, he would have had to suspend his.
Labor Day goes by.
Oh, it'll be nice again this weekend.
Okay,
I was actually happy.
we're gonna go back to work here.
Yes, sir.
Mary Kay has ballots for us. We're gonna vote. You have to sign your ballot because these are not secret ballots. And you've each seen the thing about how the vote goes, if it's a tie or anything, but
You wanna just go over that once for everybody, if you don't mind?
For the public.
For the public, just so you announce it.
okay, so Mary Kay has contacted our school attorney, and just to clarify what will happen in different scenarios on voting here, and I'll just read off this. The first scenario would be that there are two candidates who each receive 4 votes for the board member position. The procedure that should be followed in that instance is the board president shall call for a second vote and a third vote. If both of those votes result in a tie, the next step would be to have a 52-card deck of cards, and the board president would shuffle the cards and ask each candidate to pick a card from the deck. The candidate with the highest card would be considered the winner and placed on the school board. If there are 3 candidates for the position and no candidate receives a majority of 5 votes, there would first be a runoff between the 2 lowest vote candidates, and potentially the board would follow the process identified above if the 2 lowest vote getters are tied. If the 3 candidates each get different votes but no one gets a majority, the least number of votes candidate would be dropped off of the second vote, and a second vote would be taken of the 2 higher vote candidates. If that result is a tie, you would do the same process as identified above.
So first and foremost, you need to get to 5 votes to win.
You got to get the 5 votes to win, and in this first round of voting, I would assume that some candidates are going to get dropped off. That it won't, well, it could be a 7-way tie, but, well, it can't be a 7-way tie.
You're right.
Can't be a 7-way tie.
There'll be at least one that gets.
Does that borrow your pen? I just want to say, thank you everybody for interviewing. You should all come and run for re-election if you don't win. That's how most of us, somebody got appointed and the other one got on the board by election eventually. In the last 2 elections, having nobody run is not very much fun and not good for just communication in general with the public. So, and it was just sad not having 2 debates the last 2 times. And it was no fun to win the election not having anyone to run against.
Speak for yourself.
The other thing I'd just like to mention for anybody who hasn't, is that this position is, there's approximately 1.5 years left on the position, but the person who is appointed here tonight will only serve until April. At that time, the 4th place vote getter will serve a 1-year term. So the top 3 vote getters will have a 3-year term. The 4th place person will complete the remainder of this position on the board, which would be 1 year. Okay, with that, we will go ahead and vote. Mary Kay is counting, and is somebody helping you? Tim is the assistant vote counter here.
I wonder how he did in math.
Tim does have a degree in accounting, so hopefully he knows the coverage.
So we should double check.
Have we balanced the budget yet?
Yes.
Bounced the budget? Yeah, we bounced it.
Bounced it.
Interviews cards, you will have to decide if this is higher.
Stays high. What? Space diamonds.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. I can't decide if I want an absentee vote or voted person,
On ours,
or both.
or her mailman.
Will she get it there?
Yeah, she'll get it there. So she applied for it. Nikki can leave the person. That's what she did. Last year she wanted once in the morning. Last election, the primaries, whatever we had, she was here in August.
Oh, okay.
So she ended up, she goes away, but she just, she's down there, she'll take her lease and say that I'm here. So she puts here.
Nathan,
Till the 18th. Also, he can't ask for absentee ballot. So also because the deadline is October.
So do you want top vote getter?
We just want to know how many votes each candidate got.
Okay. Wayne Gagnon, 3. Keisha Johnson Shelley, 0. Jill Maddock Nelson, 1. David Bardo, 2. Chelsea Pant, 2. Angela Schreiber, 0. Stanley Kaczynski, 0. So we have one with 3, 2 with 2, and 1 with 1.
Well, and I guess you'll have to move up the top 3.
No, actually, don't we drop off the bottom one versus got
No,
one
no, no.
and vote on the other two?
No, there's
There's a
3.
tie or something. No, you gotta, yeah. Oh, I
You,
see.
you'll have to have the top 3 run off.
They're just the telecommunications vote getters.
That's a different situation.
3 candidates, no candidates, majority. Be a runoff between the two lowest.
We drop off the bottom 4 and the top 3 run again.
Yeah.
Because the second place is tied. So it should be top 2.
What is it, 3, 2, 2, and 1?
Yeah.
So I think you have, we'll vote again on the 3 names.
Okay.
I think.
Okay, so we will vote again on the 3 names. Is that,
Dave, Chelsea, Jill, right? The lowest. No, the lowest one is 1, 2, 3 drop off.
Bardo,
Then
Chelsea.
there is a second place. You probably have to run these 3.
okay,
Right?
so we're gonna do, we're gonna vote on the top 3 here.
So let's remind them who they are.
Andy, when we get our ballots, would you mind just letting us know when to stop the meeting?
Yeah. There's Katie, announce that again.
Okay, this time you'll be voting for Wayne Gagnon, David Bardo, and Chelsea Pant.
Yeah, probably not phone call.
this round, Wayne Gagnon had 4, Dave Bardo 2, Chelsea Pant 2.
So we would have to vote again.
Yeah.
Or
We
you
have
could
those
vote
two people.
between the two. You can vote just between the two.
Really did you, that's what you spoke between Dave and Chelsea. You gave us 2 confusing opinions.
The third paragraph was explain how.
Right now you have to get to that.
Run off your 2 lowest vote getters are tied.
So it'll be part of it.
Oh, so we draw. So that would be. No, we vote again.
No,
We vote again.
No, we vote on the bottom 2 now.
Yep, just the bottom 2.
On the bottom 2, and then whoever moves ahead then has to go against Gagnon.
Okay, so we're gonna vote on those 2, the bottom 2, Dave and Chelsea.
Yes, it does.
How many did you print?
Several.
I've done
Mary is on top of it.
She's getting the steps in too, I see. Yeah, can you hold on to my watch while you walk?
How much?
In the office it's only 4. We have to make an amendment. It's not much because you just walk in the room. Maybe a couple of times you might go to the stress lab upstairs. It's more for getters, with the cattle. Some of the positions in the offices have actually got rid of them. Oh, it does chair. They have that whatever that. Very lex or whatever they call it. It's a flexible thing that comes up.
I got one of those in my office. My office got a fridge in the conference room, so I got there sitting there. Take it out of the fridge and stand.
Okay, this time we have 6 for Chelsea Pant, 2 for David Bardo.
Okay? And we'll be voting between Wayne and Chelsea here.
Yep.
Thank you.
We'll vote again.
We have a tie.
I knew it.
Seriously, the deck of cards?
So, no, we'll vote again.
Vote again and. Vote again. That we can vote this. And if it's time for the third vote, then we break it.
I'm pretty sure that if we heard it'd be a triumph of democracy.
And Glenn, that.
We have a winner. Wayne Gagnon with 5 and Chelsea Pat with 3.
Okay, congratulations, Wayne. For the rest of the candidates, just to remind you that on the board here, 5 of us have sat in that chair in our process to get on the board. 3 of us, when we sat in that chair, we were not selected. And the election's coming next spring. And that is the true test of whether you should be on the board or not. Okay, thank you. And we'll go on with the rest of the meeting here.
Yeah.
And we will start with a COVID update.
Okay. I'll give, where'd he go? Tim a second. He'll talk to you about food service, but I wanted to go over current numbers too. We are right at 65% in-person learning, so it hasn't varied much, and of course then 35% remote learning. We sent a survey, actually Amy Dom sent it to the entire staff at the end of week 1, because from my perspective, as I shared with the board at the end of week 1, I thought things went very well. We had some bumps in the road, certainly, but who wouldn't during a global pandemic? So from, the admin perspective, we thought that things that were within our control worked well. We're still waiting for the devices to be shipped that we didn't receive yet, but our remote learners have a device. So if you look at it that way, that's what's most important. And secondly, Canvas is still not fully implemented. It has, that learning management system has to talk with Infinite Campus, our student management system. And the two haven't reconciled because they're overwhelmed with districts just like us who are going that route. So while we wait, we talked about all kinds of options. Do we reach out to our remote learners and, ask you for permission to delay their start? We didn't like that idea at all because there are ways that we can reach out to them in the meantime while we wait for Canvas. So that's what we've done. We've used email, good old-fashioned district email to reach them. Schools through the middle school use Class Dojo. That's been a primary source of communication. And then we're also using Google Meet and Google Classroom. So we are making gains remotely, but not nearly what we'll have when Canvas is up and running. Rachel, our tech coordinator, feels like next Monday would be a for sure thing. I hesitate to say that to parents because by the time I do, there will be another delay. But that's what we're hoping for, if not before. The test run, according to Mark Kautza, for Canvas and Campus to mesh happened on either Thursday or Friday, and we're still waiting for the results. So, I started to say that while we, from our perspective, things went really well, we wanted to ask the staff. And so Amy sent, we're calling it a Fall Fridays exit slips. So before you leave for the week, we want to ask what resonated well with you, what gave you pause. We asked specifically about remote learning, and then who staff would like to give a shout out to. The first question, and I should tell you, we had 111 responses too from staff, so that's pretty significant for a Friday when they were really burned out after that first week. But 98% of what resonated with you was positive, and the vast majority, I didn't tally all, but was a tribute to our students and how excited they were to be back, how well they did with expectations, and just comments about how nice it was to not have large class sizes, to have kids who were so happy to be there. And they really handled the masks well and the other safety expectations. What gave you pause? Similarly to question 3 about remote learning, that was the greatest cause for pause. And we're going to talk more about that in a minute. And then finally, the last question, the shout out. That was really nice to see everyone from students to support staff, to the building level administrators, to the families for making the best of a less than ideal situation. So that's what we learned after our first week. And in terms of remote learning, some of you may have questions about that. One thing I try to tell teachers, because there have been a handful who have expressed that feeling of being very overwhelmed, and the comment about like doing twice the job. So what we try to capture is that 4K through 3, we do have a targeted teacher identified as the remote learning teacher. So he or she would be the primary contact for those students. At the middle level, we haven't been able to do that in grades 4 through 7 because we don't have as many sections. There are only 6 teachers, and then class sizes would be too large. So a middle level teacher then feels responsible, like a high school teacher, for teaching a smaller class and then feeling that obligation to reach out to remote learners, perhaps after school or during prep, etc. And while that is true, that is 100% the reason that you, the board, authorize us to go to a 4-day week in person too. Because I heard the majority of those, that feeling of being overwhelmed on Thursday, as I should have. But there was a respite on Friday. And that empowerment of working together, even with Canvas not fully functioning, and reaching out to those remote learners and who have been in-person learners, and that strength in numbers, kind of the conquer and divide of what we had to do for those kids. I am certain, although I didn't ask, that teachers felt better on Friday when they left than they did on Thursday when they left. And that was a very intentional outcome, knowing that we were going into running 2 modes of learning simultaneously. The other efficiency that middle school teachers would have that an elementary teacher does not is they can take on a content. So I might be responsible for responding to these middle schoolers' social studies questions and posting the social studies lesson. But that's it then. My colleagues are doing the other work, and we wanted to lighten the load that way. They fully endorse it. And to Amy's credit, the middle school also came up with a helpline. Today was the first start, Amy? Yeah. So families and students can actually call in, and there's someone on the other end to help until we know that we're going to get better as time goes on. But it's, we've had 3 days of face-to-face and 4 of overall instruction. A lot of it has been class expectations. These are the ways you can reach me as a remote teacher. This is a list of the units that we're going to cover. This is how much time you can expect to spend. So a lot of that was what I would call beginning of the year expectation things. So we haven't hit hard academics. And from the parents' perspective, I can honestly tell you I've had only one, and it was today actually, one really strong message of dissatisfaction with remote learning, and that's an elementary student parent. And I believe he'll be here to speak about that in the future, but overall, that's where we're at with remote learning, and we know it will get better. Hats off to the staff. They have done just an incredible job, and I know they'll continue. And support staff, when we said all hands on deck, that wasn't an exaggeration. They were right there assisting in any way they can. So are there questions I can answer for you, or my team can answer for you about remote learning?
Okay, I'm looking at it from now is 4K going to get into this remote?
They are.
They are, okay.
Some have.
So from 4K to 3rd grade, with these, there's one teacher at each level, correct? All right, so let's say I was teaching at East, and then I became the 2nd grade remote person, but my school was at East. And I've got kids at West and North and East. I don't know, I guess I was trying to think of easier ways. Could the remote teachers kind of become their own entity, like their own school, per se? Their own, who do they answer to? Who's in charge of those remote teachers? Or are they answering to three different principals? Do you know what I'm saying?
I do. I would say they're homeschool principal, but if there's like a student issue, so if I'm the lead remote teacher, like Jody Tomczyk at grade 3,
okay,
I am the lead remote teacher, but that student will also remain on Wes's enrollment in John Decker's classroom. He will be checking in as well.
Okay.
It isn't a permanent spot where he's off the hook now. and he only has a small in-person class. They work together weekly, and
Okay,
he'll be
so-
checking in with the kids as well.
So let's say I am the East teacher and I'm an East teacher and I'm the second grade remote teacher. If I've got a question, would I go to Tom? Because he would be my building administrator. Or do I go to Rachel because the kid I have a question on is a West kid? Or do you know what I'm saying?
I do.
It's
No
like
one
sort
has
of like-
asked me that yet, but I would assume
I
you
was
could
just
really
thinking
go to
about all the
any.
different things, that it would be really hard to, whereas if they had, let's say, I had a second grade class, they would be my second graders, even though somewhere out in the outlying schools, they would have a brick and mortar teacher. But they would be my kids, and I would like to have, I just feel it would be easier to have one administrator that I could go to. If Tom was my go-to guy and I had a question, I just shoot Tom a question and get a response. Like, do you understand what I'm saying? Rather than to go to Tom and then have to run over to Rachel and then get to Donna. I don't know, maybe I'm making a bigger thing out of it. I just am looking.
think that's an area that we're working on. That is
Okay.
that is a gap in the planning where we have the teachers assigned,
Mhm.
but who's that lead person to work with the remote teachers? So we're looking at some options there, but it is as you described. If Jody has a question, she'll shoot me an email, and usually it's a conversation between the three principals, how we're going to address this. But I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, I guess-
understand what you're looking for, like who's going to work with those remote teachers and kind of be their principal.
And make sure that they're all on that,
Yeah.
because you've got one from one building that might do things one way with Donna and then do things another way with Rachel, and where if they had one supervisor or one go-to person that, and then they'd all kind of be on the same page. I don't know, maybe, I guess I'm looking at it from like a, nothing, the program isn't ready to go, kind of a stressful kind of a, and is everybody starting out the same way? Did Jody and Cora and Cindy, did they all start out the same way? I would think when you got to second and third grade, the kids would be more able to use their device and, they're more familiar, but like I just can't imagine teaching 4K or kindergarten remotely, I just think, oh my God. And I'm wondering, like you were talking about the reach out and get to know your parents. I would think that you would have expectations for your, for the parents and for the student. So you would, I'm assuming that they did all that.
Those have been shared, yes.
Good, okay. Not good. I'm just thinking about, okay, so let's say I'm a caretaker. Let's say I'm a grandma and I work a 7 to 3:30 job. And my grandchild would go off to some type of a daycare situation. Would it be, is this something that, could there be a day where it was, instead of 7:30 to 3:30, could there be a day where it was like 2 to 8?
Yes,
a time
families, that's
where-
the beauty of remote learning. They have that flexibility. So grandma or the caretaker would communicate with the teacher and say, this is our schedule. It would be best for us if we could reach out at 7 p.m. Now, that might not mean a face-to-face, but what it could mean is she knows that the teacher knows at 7 p.m. that's when the emails will come. So first thing the next morning, if I'm that teacher, maybe I can call, respond to email.
Okay.
But it is not a minute-for-minute replica of what happens in the classroom.
Okay, see, I'm wondering, like, I did, you know, this is just a whole new, we've been talking about it for months, but, you know, and I put myself in that position of either the parent or the caretaker and the teacher. I would like to see you and talk to you. But if I can't do it till 7 o'clock, and you know, I would be one that would be checking my email at 7:30 and see what grandma asked me, and, you know, it just seems like it would be like a nonstop. It would be hard to train myself to wait until morning to look at those, because then in the morning I'm already getting going on that day. I don't know, I guess I'm getting more stressed out about it maybe than the remote teachers are. I don't know.
One consideration when we're talking to our families that are choosing remote is it a viable option for you to choose remote?
Mm-hmm.
So while we want to respect the safety and their choice, we also can't expect our teachers to do 24 hours
To
a
be
day.
24 hours, right?
So if those are situations, we would say, is this really viable, and can we have your student come to school in person, right? Like, because you can't manage all of that, and your daycare provider can't, and our teachers can't necessarily teach
Right.
from 7:30 to 3:30 and then till 8. But we also are not live streaming, right?
Right.
So we upload and we try to work with the families so that they can do that when they need to, and it's convenient for them as well. But
So let's say I'm doing, let's say I'm Cindy and I did a math lesson for kindergarten. That's recorded and saved somewhere, so then somebody can come in and watch that video?
Yes, I don't know if she's done that yet.
Well, I'm
but
just
that is-
making that up off the
that
top
is
of my
an
head. So
option,
you don't
yes.
have, so I could be able to click on something and watch Cindy give her math lesson from that morning at 4:30 in the afternoon.
that's the goal.
Yes.
That's
We're
the
not
goal.
there. Yep. I would say we're there 100%, yeah. But
Okay.
that's the
Right,
goal.
I'm
No.
sure we're not.
No,
because,
but
yeah.
that's how, you know, I guess when we were talking about all this remote, I was thinking that, let's say these two were my kids and you were in 3rd grade and you were in 5th grade and I had both your schedules. I was thinking, okay, it's 10 o'clock, you get on the computer because it's your math class and it's your social studies class. I guess and that you would watch it while it was
Live.
happening, live.
Live seems like it would be the easiest solution. Turn on Google Meets and you watch your teacher and she can all see all 20 kids through their webcams.
Yeah,
That-
the terms we've looked at are synchronous and asynchronous, which I learned along with everyone else. So live would be synchronous, and that is an option, but we also told families for selecting remote that there would be flexibility. So the only thing about that 10 o'clock time frame, what if it doesn't work for the family?
Sure, right.
So that could be what happens and what some teachers are doing, but it might also be, you know, a taped lesson from a previous day or some type of video clip that explains something, and then Heidi's right, that can be uploaded so that it can be watched and rewatched at the family's convenience.
Okay.
So what we want, JD and Mary, I would say, is to be a combination of whatever works for the family and the teacher.
Okay. All right, I guess.
There isn't one right way.
Right.
Because everyone has such
So it's
variables.
not, I guess I've never tried it. Can you even record like a Google Meets, like when we did ours, and then you put them on YouTube like live?
We've
But
done
those
it for
automatically-
admin meetings.
So will those automatically record and then they could just go back and watch it, and then you'd have, wouldn't that be nuts? You could have 5 different history lessons you could watch on the same topic.
Right,
Or
that
if
is an
there's-
option.
Or you pick the best one, somebody says, oh, that's the best one, but then somebody's got to watch all 5 and pick the best
Yeah.
one. And then
Or, you
someone's
know,
gonna be
if there's a
trying to
lesson that the kid doesn't, the child doesn't get it. And of course, you're gonna get into the upper grades where the parent's not gonna, I mean, like, I keep hearing about the math and how different, you know, to me, you get the answer, but it's not about that anymore, just getting the answer. And so they'll be able to like go back and rewatch a lesson a couple times? Or once they watch it, do they lose the ability to watch it again? They can watch it over and over and over.
That,
Right.
once Canvas is up and running, that's
Okay.
Canvas allows you, it archives, and it puts the things in files. I mean, like, That's kind of how it works.
Okay, so how do the parents know that this is how it works? When they picked up their devices, was there a direction sheet or a how-to sheet in there?
There was, yeah, one page Rachel put together, this is where we're at, logging in, but the Canvas piece, we didn't share yet.
It's not
because
there
it's not
yet.
ready. Mhm.
Okay, so
And
they'll
then-
know how, because I wouldn't know how.
Yeah, we're gonna have to plan, I mean,
Right.
once, we know that we're gonna have to do
A
some
step by
work
step.
with our
Mhm.
parents and our students on site and off site to make sure that they feel comfortable using this.
And of course, for the little kids, you're gonna have to show it to them once or twice, and they're gonna be able to get themselves in themselves. I mean, because that's just the way their little minds work, and the older kids already know how, but I'm thinking about some of the adults, you know, that are like, oh my God, I don't know how to do this.
We'll figure it out.
Okay, yeah.
Well, they will figure it out, but I don't want them to, you know, by the time they figure it out, it's the end of the first
Well,
quarter.
I mean, we, the adults, we're the ones that are gonna have to figure it out.
I know, and I just, you know, I guess I just, as I think about it, I come up with all these different, you know, because in the end, we just don't want everybody to just get by or slide on the seat of their pants and you know, like last spring, which was crazy.
Yep. I think-
They're getting grades and stuff now, right? I mean,
Yes.
and are they, and
Well, not
attendance?
yet, but they
No,
will
but
be.
they will. And what about attendance?
Yes,
Okay.
once that's finalized, attendance for remote learners will be based on a few things depending upon level. Engagement is one, so we'll be able to tell who's communicated with the teacher, who's, you know, looked at some of the lessons and made attempts and who hasn't.
Okay.
So it'll be based on engagement, and then as you go higher at the high school level, I know Heather, Anita, and others have spent significant time looking at existing policies for remote learners, and it will be based on, you know, completion. These are the expectations. How many of those have you done? But it won't be a period by period attendance like it is in person.
Okay.
And Mary, just to alleviate some fears too, like our whole messaging through our admin team, through our teachers, is that we don't want to lose our learners. We know that we're behind, we know that it's working together, but the connections that those teachers are making and the principals are making with the parents and the kids, that's our priority right now.
Yeah,
So that when we're ready,
and it
we
should
have
be
those
that,
relationships.
the connecting with them and letting them know you're there
Yes.
and how huge that is. There was something else I was gonna say, and you probably don't even want me to think of what I was gonna say, but, okay, so we gotta wait till the end of the quarter. Let's say he decides he wants to go back to school, but he can't go until the quarter, correct?
There have been, I think, 4 students for various circumstances that we've allowed to make that change in person already. Class size is one. Can we still physically distance? The reason is another. Why was that request made, and can we accommodate? So it's been on a case-by-case basis. Really good philosophical discussions. We want to do what's best for every student. And if the parent knew on day one that remote learning wasn't going to work or this circumstance changed, we honored that if we could. You'll understand we didn't advertise because I will need help from you as the board and certainly local health officials to monitor what happens second quarter, what will our community situation be, and what will the advice be that how many more can we take, if any.
What is the official start date of second quarter?
November.
Beginning of November.
Beginning, yeah. 8th, I think, or something like that. So, yes, but that was a guideline.
Okay.
And case by case. So there
Okay.
were, and we denied a few as well. But overall, we didn't have as many as we could have, so.
And a caveat, if you have students with special education or IEPs, those are IEP-driven decisions as well. They follow the same guideline, and that has been shared with the parents. However, if the IEP team determines that it's not in the best interest of the child to remain in remote, based on their disability-related needs, then we may make those decisions on a case-by-case
Sure.
basis as well.
Sure. Well, and you know, I had a pickup over at North. I picked up the two boys, and every kid had a mask on.
Oh, yeah.
Coming out of the building, had a mask on. The adults all had masks on. I think it worked good, didn't it?
Oh, yeah,
I mean,
the feedback from staff about the kids, they called them resilient and excited, eager to please. We've had virtually no mask issues.
And that's
With
great.
students.
With all the, you know, again, I think that was an adult issue.
Yeah.
You know, the kids will go and do their thing. And if they gotta wear the mask to be there, they'll wear them. Well, good. Okay, I'm sure I'm gonna have more questions at some point, but this whole remote thing is
Yep.
way
Mary,
beyond
those were good
me.
questions.
I'm old. Okay, thank you.
Can you provide a quick food service update?
So,
Come a little closer.
the National School Lunch Program, which is typically what we run the school with, where we have paid, free, and reduced lunches, is how we start the year and what we were told. Then on I think it was day one, after day one, the DPI got an announcement from the Department of Education that we would be going back to, they would allow us a waiver and we could go back under the summer feeding program, which allows free breakfast and lunch for all students. So effective earlier that week then, we did not charge for lunches, and we're putting together packets for our remote learners that they can pick up on Fridays. I think the number last Friday were approximately 120 lunches were packed up for the week for our remote learners. And then we're working on a way to figure out how to get lunches to families for Fridays. So students in person will be figuring out a way to get it to them Friday afternoon before they dismiss, and then they'll have a breakfast and a lunch for their remote learning on Fridays. So we put out a dialer as well as posting it on Facebook and on the web. We're asking families to register so we don't overbook meals, and depending whether they're remote or in person, they can sign up for those provided lunches.
Is this happening because of our free and reduced rates, or is this an umbrella thing happening all throughout?
It's all throughout.
So no money collecting, no
Correct.
robocall saying you've got less than $10 in your account?
Exactly.
Wow.
Yep. It's nice.
Yeah, very cool.
Okay.
Thanks, Tim.
You know what? Wait, Andy, there was one more thing. I went on the district website and went into the entry, the start year thing. Should there be, do we have different expectations? I mean, the kids in the end, their expectations are all going to be the same. I mean, all learners' expectations are the same. But do you think somewhere there should be remote learner expectations? I mean, you know, like your kids are home with you, so make sure that, you know, in much more elaborate terms, but should there be a place where
We talked a
they're
lot
kind of
about that,
posted?
and we thought because of the varying levels, those would come from the teachers.
And then they'll be posted on the, okay, because the one thing I saw still said, do this by July 31st, and I thought, maybe, because it's early.
But we do have remote learner expectations that were actually created by one of the middle school teachers.
And that was in your middle school letter
Yeah,
today.
And there's what the parents should be doing during that time, what the students should be doing, what the teachers' responsibilities, expectations are. So that was kind of shared out with the families, and they were quite good. Ashley Dar made them, and she's allowed us to share them with all of the families district-wide as needed. So what's really hard, I think, in all of this, we sent a parent survey too at the middle school last Friday, and we had all positive feedback. Like, everyone's very understanding. But I think what is confusing is people want to replicate what in-person instruction looks like when it's really not the same. It's just not. And in helping coordinate the AIMS program, we learned that learning isn't going to look the same. It's not going to be the same amount of time. It's a little bit different. And parents were raring to go, 8 to 3 or whatever that looks like on that first day, and that's just not the reality of a in-home learning situation. So it's taking some adjustments, and we're learning along the way, and we all have a lot of questions every day, and we're working through them as they come. So if you want us to share those expectations with you, but they were in one
They
of the
were in
reopening plans.
when Mary Kay sent us your
Okay.
middle school letter. They were in there. Okay, all right, I'm done.
And that concludes our update unless there are other questions.
Okay, if there's no other questions, we will move on to new business. Board member meeting and legislative report. And the only thing I would report is that the regional meeting is coming up here shortly. And I know several of us attended the actual regional meeting last year. And this year, the food won't be as good, but the meeting won't be as long. So, but we'll all be getting a notice here. We should be getting a notice.
Depends, I'm a good cook.
Oh, okay.
What do you cook? Depends.
See, I always measure how good the food is. If somebody else is cooking it, it's good. So anyway, you'll be getting that notice. And does anybody else have anything else they'd like to report?
Did we have anyone that submitted a resolution or anything?
No.
Okay.
And then we'll go on to item B, seclusion and restraint report.
Andy, I gotta go home. I gotta put my kids to bed.
Okay.
Seclusion and restraint.
And this will be Heidi.
Do you have any questions regarding it? Oh. Do you have any questions regarding it?
Yeah. Have a good night.
No, I didn't. Did anybody else have questions on this report?
Just one. There was a top section and then there was a second chart on it, Heidi. But now that was just to differentiate between, or is that just taking the numbers in the first chart and breaking them down by disability and non-disability?
Raw data, and then I don't have it in front of me, I apologize. But it's not different, it just breaks it down a little bit.
It just breaks it down differently. Okay,
Yes.
that was my question. Thank you.
So if I'm going off the top of my memory, numbers are way down from what they used to be 5 years ago?
They are based on 3 years ago.
3 years ago?
This year, this past year, just know that it was probably an uptick from the year before, only because we stopped in March. And it was about the same.
Right, okay. All right, I was just making sure if they were.
But
there was big
overall,
fluctuation.
from 17-18 to now, it's a dramatic decrease.
Right. Do you have any input on why that is, or just
Well-
interventions that you have? Toot your horn, come on.
No, I wouldn't toot our horn. I would say that we collect data better.
Okay.
We are doing it the right way. We are less inclined to seclude and restrain students. So that is the tooting their horn based on better practice, universal practice. But also just the way that we were over prior to, we were putting kids in holes and secluding them way more than what we should have done.
Sure.
So I think it is twofold: better reporting, more accurate reporting, and better practice.
I was very happy when I saw these numbers, so well done. One other thing, I wish I would have emailed you before, but I completely forgot about this, but is there any way that you're reporting law enforcement contacts with students?
There should be, only if they have to restrain.
Only if they restrain, okay.
Yeah, and there
all right.
should, I think there was one or two potentially at the high school last year. I
Okay.
don't know if that's in that document. I
Okay.
didn't include, I can't include in the report any PII or,
Yep.
identifiable information from pupils.
Okay.
And so that's why there's no names, but that could have gotten left off. But yeah, we are required, even though law enforcement can use whatever techniques that they do, they still have to report through our system when they do those.
Right.
But I only remember 2 restraints last year on that report, but I don't know if they made it on
Okay,
And
okay.
this year, there is new reporting data from the state that we have to do, so this report basically will get uploaded into the state. That's never been before. Usually, it's just a board report, and you keep it on file if they ever wanted to question based on disproportionality and all of that. But this year, they have new, an update in the law, and we'll have to.
Through DPI that
Yes.
you're reporting? Okay, cool. Good. Thank you.
Okay. And we will go on to item C, Langley County Boys and Girls Club Agreement Review.
I'll come up here.
Yeah.
I always
Thank
like
you.
a microphone. I just didn't know if you guys had any questions regarding the contract. We worked with the club for several years in an after-school program. This year they're taking more of the brunt because we cannot have after-school programming or before-school programming in our building, so, but if you have questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Are the expenses about the same as they've been in the past, Amy?
They're the same.
They're the same, okay.
So-
Amy, if I can just clarify that, they're doing more of a service this year. So they're taking the students from the end of the day, providing support, and then providing a meal and activities, enrichment activities after. So the contract last year was for $15,000. This year, I believe, it's for $25,000. So we're taking that out of the ESSER funds, because the ESSER funds do allow after-school activities to kind of catch up after COVID as an allowable cost.
And one thing I wanted to add that's not part of this, but the Boys and Girls Club service that they're gonna offer to us also is being able to use it as a community space if we need to do evaluations or remote learners that we're struggling with, and we can bring them in. And so we're working on an MOU with them at no cost. I mean, like, we're kind of sharing that, but they're creating a space for us there to be able to do that as well. So that's been something that we're working on.
So will this come out as a
Let's come up with an
action item at the board?
It will,
Okay.
in 2 weeks, yes.
One final note too, Amy, and maybe you can clarify. I believe it includes a free membership to the club.
It does.
And I think the membership also includes Friday activities for students that are participating in the after-school program.
Yep, and it also included, if they participated in the summer program, this year they didn't do a lot of their field trips that they typically do, but the summer previous, they were allowed to participate in the field trips and those experiences in the summer as well, at no charge. So, by promoting academic achievement and work completion and being a part of this program, kids are able to receive free membership and more privileges at the club.
Okay, and I see this includes the B grade graduate program, but what about the other program where they were coming into schools and
And doing some tutoring or
tutoring
working with small
with
groups.
elementary?
Tom, do you have any updates on that?
Yep, that's still in the works. The way that really works is we do our fall assessment, and then they use that data to kind of group the students, identify the students that they wish to assign with a tutor. So they usually start that around October with some of the tutors coming in a week or two, in about a couple of weeks maybe, just to help out, to get to know the students. But we're still planning on having them in.
Okay.
This is year 3 of our 3-year
Yes.
agreement.
Okay. And will we evaluate that at some point and decide where we want to go with that?
So if you recall, the researcher from UW Milwaukee, I believe, spoke to us last spring and gave us an update. So it isn't really something that we pursued, it was more so their research, and we allowed, you as a board allowed them to use our students in the research. However, I'm curious how they can validate any of their results. There have been so many variables, including COVID, so all of that, lost instruction time, et cetera. So I think their findings at the end of the year will be interesting.
Okay. Okay. We will go on to, thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Possible action items. Item A, consideration to approve Mathematics Institute of Wisconsin professional development contract.
I move the board approve the Mathematics Institute of Wisconsin professional development contract as presented.
Second.
Okay, any discussion or questions on this?
I gotta go.
Okay.
Okay, Tom, obviously you're the one we talked to for this.
I'm gonna sit in the chair.
Is this, well, you were already halfway up. Tom,
Leave me
is
there, I'm
this,
gonna.
is this for everybody who teaches math? Or is this for those new people that are in the buildings, in the 3 elementary buildings? Aren't there some reading and math
Yeah.
people?
Yeah, so this goes back probably a year ago when we formed a team to finally talk about math. And there were 3 training days at CISA 7. We missed the 3rd day because of the shutdown. But we pulled together a K-12 team. We looked at our school district data. We had people there from DPI, the Mathematics Institute of Wisconsin. And out of that work, we decided we need to continue this on, and using our AGR money, Achievement Gap Reduction money, or you might be familiar with SAGE dollars. One of our targeted methods of reducing the achievement gap is coaching. So we use that in our ELA. We have a very talented ELA coaching team, April Schofield, Donna Krieger, Jamie Kirsch. So we have a model that we can look at and say, this is effective. And we're not at that point with math coaches, but like you said, we hired this summer internal staff to be math and reading support teachers. And we're funding that through AGR. And we talked as a principal team, we need to support them. So we knew that the Mathematics Institute of Wisconsin had this type of coaching. So it's a series of half-days with that group of teachers that went to Green Bay, and then full days for our math and reading support teachers, with the hope that we, from that group, maybe can develop a coaching lead person and kind of model the same thing we're doing in math that we've been doing in ELA. So,
Makes sense.
Okay. Now, in this group that went to Green Bay, or to CISA 7 or wherever it was, is it just elementary, or are there middle school, high school people with you?
it's middle school and high school. We're just fortunate at the K-3 level to have AGR funds.
Right.
So,
And then you were able to spend those on people?
yeah.
Okay. Wow. All right. But I didn't know if this was like for everybody who teaches math, or if it was just...
Yeah, it's a core team, so we're hoping to, train and support these people that are our support teachers, and then that core team, and we still have to have a bigger discussion because we never were able to finish that 3rd day. We really need to bring back that full K-12 team and say, okay, where are we at? But as you know, we've got other things that we're working on.
Right. There's a lot going on.
Yeah.
Okay, so these half-days and full days, or virtual, or however they are any of these people involved in this, also involved in the reading? The reading, are they still coming, the girls still coming?
They are. CISA 6, yes.
Okay, so are there any of the people that are doing this also involved in that?
Well, they're reading and math support. So
Okay.
we've had to do some shuffling because we wanted to have these remote teachers. So ideally, yes, they're supporting kids both in their reading and their math. So
So that's a lot of time spent doing the in-service work,
Yeah.
where they wouldn't be working with the kids then, correct? Because they'd be learning how to
Yeah,
implement this
throughout
program.
the year.
Okay.
I think it's a reasonable schedule, and, I think we learned a lot way back when we first set aside dollars for what we called interventionists.
Mm-hmm.
That did not go so good,
No,
because we didn't provide the support.
no.
And that kind of morphed into coaching, and now we have what we have in ELA. We've got a
Right.
really strong
Right.
internal coaches that are well respected.
Mm-hmm.
And we want to see that happen in math.
With math. So you'd like to eventually end up with 2 or 3 people like Donna
Possibly,
and Jamie
yeah.
and April.
Something
Okay.
like that, or maybe it's a K-12 type of thing.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Cool, okay.
All right.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Okay, any other questions or comments on that? And then we'd do a roll call, Mary.
Falzer,
Yes.
Goldick,
Yes.
Deep,
Yes.
Long, yes,
Yes.
Newfeld, Hyatt,
Yes.
and Mary.
Yes. And item B would be report of employee resignations and retirements.
Move the board approve the following resignations. Tracy Bussey, Special Education Instructional Assistant, effective August 27, 2020, and Brittany Redico, 6th grade ELA teacher, effective September 10, 2020.
Second.
Any questions or comments?
Just that, sorry to see them both leave, but especially with Tracy, can definitely understand the situation. So
Mhm.
hopefully things will score themselves away and she'll be able to return.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and we'll go on to report of district new hires.
I move the board approve the following new hires. Crystal Reynolds, middle school ELA teacher. Jamie Walrath, library clerk instructional assistant. Andrea Wonka, special education instructional assistant. And Whitney Hayes, part-time special education instructional assistant.
Second.
Okay. Any questions or comment on those? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Welcome them to the team.
Okay, and then we're going to confirm that the next meeting is when?
October 13th.
October 13th. And the other thing I wanted to mention is that we did talk about continuing on to look at policies and review policies. And so in one of the October meetings, we will go over the 1000s there. And that is mainly, you read them, review them, got questions, comments, bring them forward. So, okay.
Motion to adjourn?
Okay, Danny made a motion to adjourn and Mike
I'll
second.
second that second.
And all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're adjourned.
Good night, Irene.
Nice job. Well,
That's exhausting.
I bet it is 9 o'clock. This hasn't happened to us in a while. Yes, it is.
Exhausting. But
I'm doing it the next 2 nights for middle school.
well, you're trained, you've been doing them and working on them.
Tom, good to see you again. It's been a while.
Mary Kay.
What's done to it?
So you didn't want me to slip that extra election in there?
I think it's very funny that Dr. Deep wanted you to wear his stepscouter.
What?
When you asked to wear her to wear your watch.